But the question is, today, what would you consider the sweet spot uh, to come in for, let's just say, an average person?
Oh, that's such a tough question. Loaded question, because what's an average person exactly?
So
Here's
let's
the
say,
way I would answer it.
let me more clearly define it. Let's say
Okay.
someone has between, let's say 500 and 5,000 of expendable income that not only can they jump in today, but they can look at a plan of action over the next 2 to 5 years, where maybe it's 500 a month, 5,000 a month. But where would you say today would be that sweet spot between 500 and 5K?
Yeah, Freddie, I love this question. Thank you so much, because it opens up some really, really important points of discussion. So the first thing I would say is that for each person, as it pertains to any investment vehicle, only ever invest what you're comfortable and willing to lose. There's no guarantees as part of this project. In any investment, there are never any guarantees. And if anyone ever tells you otherwise, you should be really concerned. What we've done, however, as a community, by working in coordination and collaboration and consensus, is we minimize a lot of the risks and a lot of the volatility that are part of other projects and part of the investment process. So that's my first answer, is only ever invest what you're willing to lose. Your scenario is I've got 500 to 5,000. So assuming that you're willing to put all of that at risk, then my next statement to you is get started with as much as you're comfortable with. I ultimately would encourage you to put all of it in if both of those things are check boxes for you. So if you've got $5,000 that if it goes away tomorrow, it doesn't change your life, great, you check that box. If you're comfortable enough with, number one, Coach Ken, who invited you to this call, to the 46 people on this call and the other 170,000 people in this community, that we're together operating in consensus, learning about DeFi, and will accomplish the two goals that we said in the next 6 months, and then build into a future for the next 3 to 5 years together. If you're comfortable with that idea, or when you're comfortable with that idea, go all in. There's no reason not to, because if, as Norman likes to say, if 90% of what we have said to you turns out to be true, it's a huge win.
I love that answer. And I love especially get in where you fit in pretty much is the attitude. And that's comfort, right? So once I gain the knowledge, then I can get out of my comfort zone real quick.
Absolutely. The other thing that you asked that I think was a great question, and I think it brings about a great perspective that we want to start talking about collectively in the community, is I think a lot of us approach this community, this project, and we think about it in terms of, well, what do I have today? And that's it. We make that decision. We look in our bank account, we look under the sofa, and we go in with what we have today. Well, there are a few folks in the community, Carlos, Mabu, that are constantly going back and adding additional funds as they find it, as they create it. And one of the things I want to encourage us as a community to consider, especially if you're if you're getting paid consistently, if you're at a job or you have a consistent paycheck, consider budgeting, putting a line item in your budget every week for what goes into this project, because it really doesn't have to be a single time investment. It doesn't have to be a single time contribution. If you have a 401k or IRA that comes automatically out of your check, comes out every time you get paid, if you treat this project in a similar fashion, it does two things. Number one, what it's going to do for you is every time you've got to buy more OSK, and even if it's a small amount, I'm going to encourage us as a community, even if it's $10, $20, the process of doing it and having to go through buying OSK, staking it, mining it, the more you do that, the more you get confident with it, the more you get comfortable with the process. So you're teaching yourself. And if you get confident with it, then it's going to be so much easier for you to then show it to other people and help other people, bring them along into the community. And it takes some of the weight off of the great folks in our community who are extending themselves to help others get started. So that gets accomplished by the repetitive nature of just taking small portions and putting it into adding it to the liquidity pool. Secondly, what it does is it exponentially impacts the size of our community. A lot of the numbers that we talk about growing to 1 million members. Well, we know that 1 million members can have a certain impact. Norman talks about If once we're at 1 million members, the ratio is 10 to 1. Is 10 million OSK, so that's an average ratio of 10 to 1. But we'll likely never reach those perfect numbers. But here's what we do know is that if the 170,000 of us, 200,000 of us started to practice putting in a little bit or a lot, but doing it on a consistent basis, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, then what then starts to happen is we become the engine that constantly keeps this thing running. We don't necessarily need to add new people at the pace that we might otherwise, because our belief and our commitment to the process is being fueled all along the way. And if we do both, or when we do both, when we do that, and then we are adding folks, we're going to see really exponential growth. So thank you for that question, Freddie. My short answer is go in as much as you are comfortable with. As you get more educated, more excited, more enthusiastic, go in some more, and then set a path to do something consistently, weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever that might be. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much for your answer. And I truly appreciate the culture that I see being developed here. And I just wanted to make one last comment, and I'll be quiet. I've heard, I'm in my mid-60s, and I've heard during the course of my life that it takes 21 days to create a habit, okay? And so when you start talking about being consistent, even at a small dollar amount, say at that $10 that you mentioned, 21 days to make a habit. We have a little more, I think, maybe 21 weeks left in this year to take advantage of some of the things here. So if you can develop a weekly habit for the next 21 weeks, I think you're going to go into a space financially that a lot of people are dreaming of today. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Freddie.